I know I'm a little late here, but I wanted to put my 2 cents in as a child psychiatrist. I was very impressed by this movie. I thought, what family therapist did they consult when they made this or wrote the script? It starts with that loss of the grandfather, and right after they had just had their babies, how the house that was built is magic and protected them through all these years and has supported the community. In child psychiatry, there is a tendency for the what we call identified patient of the family to be brought in. They are often the ones that families and even the patients will say are causing a lot of distress in the family. All the problems in the family are caused by them. You could say that Bruno is the person that caused all the turmoil, and now more recently Bruno has gone, and so there's Maribel, who tells the truth about the family and sees what's actually going on. They did an amazing job of adding the 2 sisters, Isabella and Luisa. Isabella has taken on the role in the family to be perfect, and you could see later on that she never really asked to be perfect, but she's just acting in the way that everyone expects her to act, which is the tendency for most people. There's something interesting about humans that they will act the way that they believe people expect them to behave. And that definitely happens within families, if anything more so in families than anywhere else. Kids really learn interpersonal skills and how to navigate all interpersonal interactions outside of the home, starting within the home first. There's always a duality there, and appreciating that the perfect child where things seem to come so easily and might actually be stressed out about needing to put their best foot forward all the time and be paralyzed by the inability to actually even make mistakes. And there's something beautiful about being able to make mistakes. I always tell my kiddos when I'm treating them that they're making mistakes. It means that they're trying new things and being really brave and courageous. That is a really important thing for kids to learn, is that it's safe and okay to make mistakes. That's if they are in a setting or environment where it actually is encouraged and truly safe to make mistakes within the boundaries of what the caregivers would obviously provide. Now, Luisa is the strong one, physically fit one that seems to carry both physically and emotionally the burden of the community and the family. When someone perceives a person like that to be a certain way, as she's walking through the community, people are just kind of throwing task lists at her, and I've noticed that a lot of people say that they relate a lot to her. If you do a job well, the tendency is for people to find you and give you more tasks to do. You can see that she really never says no. She just keeps on pushing through because that's the role in which she's expected to do. Maribel's parents notice that she truly is striving to be useful or contribute to the family in whatever way she can. It's not easy for any person, but especially for kids, to feel like they're not contributing to the family the same amount as maybe their siblings, and that they're being compared even if it's not being said. I really appreciate the symbolism behind the house cracking and Maribel seeing it and what's happening to our casita. When we explain behaviors to our patients, they didn't just show up with all these maladaptive coping mechanisms out of nowhere. They didn't develop these just because it is who they are. There was probably a purpose and a reason that they began to exist in the first place. And then through time, they really solidified, so much so that it was not even necessary anymore, and we haven't been able to be flexible enough in our thinking to go back to how it was before something traumatic might have happened. What's important about this family is that everyone seems to know that things aren't working and that they're all just pushing through for survival in response to that really traumatic incident of losing their grandfather, especially being under a magnifying glass in the community. And it might often feel that way for a lot of families, that they're being judged or they can't make mistakes. The damage that does long term, because then the family inside can't have an honest conversation about what's working and what's not working, what's stressing them out and what's not stressing them out, is not sustainable. So when Bruno gets involved, you truly see what could happen when there is a family member that might have been removed or ousted, or it might have been mutual because it was causing a lot of distress for both members of the family or all the members of the family. People will either not talk about them, or they almost become somewhat like a myth. People haven't really seen or heard from them. The things that they had done sound like folklore, like feels like rumors. Events that might have happened in the past kind of grow out of proportion to what they truly were. Every single experience that we might have, we might add to our bias of someone being a problem. So it confirms all of our worst fears and beliefs. It also creates space for anything that we might not feel like is working. There's a person or a place to put the blame on. It feels much more tolerable in that way. Sometimes it just grows out of proportion when you're thinking back about all the behaviors that might have existed. So every single thing, there might be a little bit more reactivity to it emotionally from each member of the family, or swinging the opposite where we don't talk about it. Here Bruno is explaining his anxiety about what Maribel is asking him to do. It's essentially utilizing his gift, which for him has unfortunately become such a curse. And I think Maribel does an amazing job of being able to challenge that belief that he caused bad things to happen, or he became a little bit more infamous for his powers. It's not true what everyone's thinking, but it's a safe place. Maribel says sometimes family weirdos get a bad rap. In some family systems, it's safer to go along with whatever the identity is defined by whoever or the whole group. If you challenge any of those beliefs, then you might be labeled the family weirdo, even though the things that you might be bringing up are extremely valid. And you can see that Abuela is really struggling when Maribel's trying to explain that what we really want for everybody might not necessarily be what they want for themselves. And when kids are growing up, being able to take a step back and figure out what it is that they actually envision for their future and what choices they want to make, being able to communicate those things is not easy for most people, let alone children. Help them kind of think through the steps and why would they feel that's a worthwhile thing to pursue for them. Is it based in reality, or is it a reactive instinct to something that they feel like they are obliged to do that is not necessarily something that would make them happy? Isabella was definitely doing that with the proposal, and she didn't feel safe enough to say that that wasn't something that she felt comfortable with. Each family member starts to talk about what has been stressing them out, what they actually want and need. And even though it's very painful to hear, particularly for Abuela, who had spent a long time creating this very strong foundation for the family, they were able to come back together and say, okay, I recognize why all of these patterns and behaviors existed for each and every one of us. That's not what we are boiled down to be as individuals and as a family. Even though this movie wraps everything up so nicely in the end, a lot of families, especially with this significant level of complex trauma, will need a lot more support. It would be great if everybody asked for support and we had enough providers to provide that support for that type of healing to happen. It will definitely take a lot more time than this movie portrays. As a child psychiatrist, you are one of those people that could be that person for a family, and it's just one aspect of child psychiatry that I appreciate so much and find so fulfilling. In general, as people, we might get very wrapped up in what we feel other people expect from us, so much so that we neglect to spend the time and explore or even feel safe enough to explore what we actually want for ourselves. Your identity is so important to explore and be able to manage all the people in your life. I am that weirdo that feels like spoilers don't really matter to me. If I watch a video like this, I'll still go watch it. And if that is the case for you, I still recommend that you watch it because it was a very beautifully done film. If you have other movies that you want me to respond to or react to, leave a comment below. If you have any questions or thoughts on how I perceived it, or further questions about kind of my understanding of the dynamic in this family, let me know and I'll get back to you. Until then, I'll see you at the next video. Thank you for watching.